Opposed? Only two.
Good evening. This is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 at 6:05. This meeting will be conducted in person in Sanford City Council chambers and via remote video and teleconference pursuant to 1 MRSA, Sections 403B2D and Section 6 of the Sanford City Council Rules of Procedure. Members of the public may join the meeting in person or remotely using the information posted on the meeting calendar on the city's website. Members of the public may also submit comments via the website under Government/City Council/Contact the Council. Would you please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you now join me for a moment of silence? And there's probably two things that you might focus on. One is the war that just broke out earlier today. Seems like there's a lot of places in our world that seems to be having problems. And so that's a sad note. A very positive note is Jimmy Carter turned 100 today. So that's a positive note to be meditating on. So, moment of silence, please. And now for roll call. Deputy Mayor Herlihy.
Present.
Councilor Stackpole.
Present.
Councilor Hanselman.
Present.
Councilor Martell.
Present.
Councilor Trench-Montagne.
Present.
Councilor Hitchcock.
Present.
And I am Mayor Brink. And also present with me are City Manager Steve Buck and Executive Administrator Larissa Ricketts. All right, let's have a vote on some past minutes in order to approve the minutes from the regular City Council meeting held on September 17th, 2024. May I have a motion, please? Ann?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
A second, please. Jonathan?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? And for the next set, in order to approve the minutes from the executive session of the City Council meeting held on August 6, 2024. May I have a motion, please? Nate?
So moved.
And a second, Ann?
I'll second that.
And all those in favor? Thank you. All right, and now for the mayor's report. I have that someplace here. Here we go. Last week, we held a housing workshop, and there were many participants present. Let me first explain what a housing workshop is. That is a workshop where we talk about all the apartments and the houses and the new things that are happening in Sanford, businesses and all that, and we inform the public and we ask if there are any questions. And so we had a lot of people here to represent the city. And I was present as the mayor, and then we had the full city council was here. Steve Buck, the city manager, Matt Nelson, the school superintendent, was here. Jamie Cole, Sanford Planning and Codes Director, Erin Moriarty, Sanford Planner, Diane Small, which is the better half of Eric Small, Sanford Housing Authority, and Carter Friend, York County Community Action Corp. Was here. Megan Jean Gendron of York County Shelter Programs was here. Nate Green, Green Mars Real Estate, which is the Nassau dorms that are now turned into apartments, was also present. Rebecca LaPierre, she is Town Square Realty Corp. Dan Coyne, which was representing United Way. We had a representative from Southern Maine Aging, and Keith McBride, Growth Council, was here. Vicki Martin, Sanford's GA Director, was here. So all those people were present to answer any questions that the public had. And this workshop was arranged in order to offer an overview of the actions that have been taken and progress being made in Sanford's to address long-term housing issues and to support improved ability of quality housing options. The meeting began with Manager Steve Buck giving an overview of the municipal actions to date to address Sanford housing matters. Sanford's planner Erin Moriarty and Codes Director Jamie Cole explained the strategic planning activities to encourage housing stability. Then Growth Council Director Keith McBride addressed our commercial housing project development, which was amazing. One of our local developers, Nate Green from Green Mars gave his perspective as a builder on his experience in developing Nassau dorms into apartments, and he was very pleased with the amount the city was willing to help him to be able to achieve that project. Next, I explain the city's goal setting and the impact it has on our community development. And then Dan Coyne from United Way explained housing affordability and lessons from the ALICE report. And last, we did a question and answer session led by myself, where the city council, municipal staff, and key partner organizations addressed some of the frequently heard comments and field questions from attendees, with a wrap-up by Steve. And some of the points that we learned from the housing workshop were, in order for cities to grow and attract new businesses, communities need a large number of new houses and a large number of apartments, which Sanford has developed over the last 2 years. Sanford also has a higher education and income level in residents than they did 2 years ago. Because of this development, new housing and new businesses are coming to our community. We are growing, and it was very obvious after this workshop that the impact on Sanford is just amazing, and the amount of apartments and housing we're going to need in the future. So that was a fantastic meeting, and I wish that everybody could have been there, but you can go and you can view it online. All right, next, no subcommittee meetings. All right, so city manager's report, and I don't know if we had a homeless update, because I think we do it next week or the week after. So could we have your city's report?
Okay, so I didn't have time to do a formal written report to you, so I'm going to hit bulleted items. Today we worked on the master lease with the SSDC. That was a great, I continue to say this, that board is really a highly functioning board. The master lease agreement is been updated, will be updated, and is going to be brought forward to the property subcommittee, so very good work there. So this is for the operation of the Anderson Learning Center and its relationship to the city. The city owns the facility. Wanted to express my appreciation. We have two things going to the Sanford Housing Authority. The Housing First units, they've gone to site plan. They continue to go through an evolution. There's an evolution there. There's 3 parcels of land down there, one of which the city took by tax acquisition earlier this year, where the encampment used to be. We're looking now at a partnership of rearranging who owns what for the 3 parcels so that the Housing First model is built on 2 of the 3 parcels that are absent from any environmental restrictions, which was going to ease the project and allow that to move forward more rapidly, but to the benefit of the third-party property owner as well. So I'll bring you those details more in the future. And I also wanted to note that the progress, the site plan is moving forward on the Sanford Courthouse, Springville Courthouse that was closed. The Housing Authority is taking ownership of that from Bureau of General Services, and will be producing 24 55-plus workforce housing units in that former courthouse. Reminder that tomorrow night, October 2nd, there will be a large forum at the Sanford Performing Arts Center for the fire station referendum that's pending for November 5th. I want to thank Jordan Wilson for doing an extraordinary amount of work on getting that agenda and the materials together. For the public's edification, this is for your ability to come and ask all of us that will be on the stage there questions about the fire stations, the whys and the hows. We'll start with opening remarks from our mayor. We'll then go into a presentation on 2 fire station videos, one of which is an informational video that's been out there for quite a while, and the second is the carcinogenic video as to how the stations themselves, the designs, actually impact carcinogenics as far as our firefighter and EMS staff are concerned. Next, there'll be a presentation on the fire station project itself by Chief Susi. He'll provide an overview of the 2 new stations, the current challenges, and how the stations will address those challenges going forward in the future. We have our lead architect from WBRC coming in, Rob Frank. He'll address the overarching question of renovation versus new, the study that started in 2007. 2017 and progressed through to current. Talk about the design and location of the proposed stations and how the new proposed stations would meet modern safety and operational standards. I then have the unenviable task of presenting the financials. So I'm hearing a lot of recognition in the community that they recognize the need for the departments, they recognize the whys, but everybody's having a very hard time grappling with the large number that's associated with that. So we'll get into what that looks like on a 30-year bond with a main bond bank. We'll do an examination of what $10 million worth of grant funding could do for the projects and how that reduces over time. In the third part of that analysis, I will look at if we were to hold off for 5 years and build in 5 years from now when the city's overall, city and schools' overall debt service levels have reduced to keep us at the $1.20 debt service effort that we're at now. What does that show for us? This quick synopsis is a 34% increase in the taxation to support the same 2 stations if we hold off for an additional 5 years. So we'll run through those analyses and present the numbers accordingly. And then we open up the floor to the community to allow them to ask questions that may not have been answered via the presentations. We have an FAQ section that's on our Connect web page, our main Connect web page, Sanford Connect's web page, and allow the public to ask us questions. We'll have the resident experts in all of the topic matter there to answer those questions for you. And for anything that's not already been asked or answered, we'll compile that as well and make that available for the public. The meeting will be simulcast on both YouTube and Town Hall streams.
Not on Town Hall streams.
Oh, Planning Board. Planning Board's meeting at the same time. So we'll do YouTube only, but it'll be recorded and be subsequently preserved and put back up for rebroadcast as well. And then we'll end with closing remarks. And then all of the informational materials, the majority of the information is going to be there for materials for people to take home and study out further should they want those. So I would encourage the public to please attend. This is your opportunity to ask us questions that may not have been answered already. The next piece, so we're also planning at the Performing Arts Center on November 14th now. We seem to have settled in from the 13th to the 14th. Will be our homeless forum, for which we will be communicating with our past and newly elected state legislators. So this is the week after the elections. So we'll have our York County state legislators there. And in conjunction with that, the Superintendent's Association for York County is going to piggyback on that and do a presentation to the legislators, as well as to desired changes to our central programs and services funding formula. So these two pieces are two of the most fiscally impacting elements for our city. So we're looking for state assistance to address those. And we feel that we can make impacts to your net taxation by having that strong communication and having our York County legislators carry that message forward into their work in Augusta. For the homeless piece, we have drilled that down from a highly aggressive agenda to bringing that back to looking at the statewide homeless housing priorities and then addressing how those impact us here in York County, so our legislators understand the state picture, but the unique aspects as far as our capacities and such here in York County and how that translates. Because our observation is many times these resources that are addressed on a statewide basis go to certain targeted areas. I'll say Bangor, Portland, Lewiston, Auburn. York County's kind of the forgotten child, and we need to do a stronger level of advocacy representing our interests. And then the last piece that I'll provide for you is the Legislative Policy Committee actions that I serve on bequest of the city on the Maine Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee. Chief Susi serves the same. We both represent District 33. And in that, I wanted to bring these topics up because we work diligently on a state level to advocate with our state legislators on certain actions that most impact us here fiscally, for which the state has a level of responsibility. Those areas would be, first and foremost, this is very important, I have legislation that I'm asking for to be sponsored. The committee is supporting that, and I know we have local legislators that support this as well. I'm seeking to remove the 15% exclusion under tax increment financing for public safety buildings. Currently, tax increment financing is a very important tool that we utilize here as a city to incentivize and pay for those high priority projects. Currently, I can only allocate 15% of those resources towards debt service or renovation of our public safety buildings. You can do 50% on a municipal building, but not on public safety. So I'm going to ask for that cap to be lifted. And in light of all of the pending OSHA requirements that are coming down, I believe that the timing is good to get that cap lifted. And if so, we could pay for the entire level of debt service for our fire stations out of tax increment financing and not impact our pre-existing tax base. We are also working on the emergency medical services and the funding provisions that are absent there in MaineCare, looking for higher reimbursement there, the elimination of the statewide Anthem contract, and a commitment that is supported under the Blue Ribbon Commission for community paramedicine. So all of those are very positive developments, and Chief Susi has been instrumental in those conversations. We're fighting for changes to the essential programs and services formula for our schools, which has a significant impact upon our tax bases, our tax bill here. Looking for greater recognition for the social services and economically disadvantaged students that we have to absorb within our local budgets, as well as the changes that have come to us from the COVID-driven valuation changes. We're looking for recognition of impacts for unfunded mandates, as we do every year. The state legislature continues to pass legislation that under the state constitution, they only reimburse us 50% and then our local tax base absorbs the rest. So we continue to pound on that topic. Housing creation, there's a large number of elements. We had a housing forum here. There's elements at the state level that we believe could be more beneficial to us. The epiphany that I had in listening to the dialogue, if you listen to a Stonington or a Bar Harbor, had the most horrific stories of the large corporations that have not only bought up the shorefront properties, but they're buying inland and transitioning them to short-term rentals, Airbnbs and other commercial rentals, and making that previously available housing stock not available or becoming completely unaffordable for local people living and working in the communities. It's driving people out. So not only do we have a need to create more housing and a continuum of that, really it's about the preservation of what already exists and not having that switch over to commercial investment properties. And then there's a large conversation, there's always a conversation about net tax reform, but really there's now a conversation about taxing us as residents different. Many states do this. And what I'm speaking of is there was the senior property tax stabilization that the state put in place. It was in place for just 1 year, and then they pulled it back because the state couldn't afford it. Many states allow for you as your primary home, which is a homestead exempt property for us now. They tax those, they prorate those down. So let's say you're valued at the 100% valuation. You may be taxed on 70% of that valuation, and then the second and third homes and the other commercial properties make up the difference on that. So we're asking for consideration at the state level. That's a difficult conversation because it's complex, because if you cause a net transference to your commercial base, your businesses, that's adverse and makes us non-competitive, we lose businesses and jobs. So it's a difficult and a complex conversation, but we've got that dialogue going. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move right along. This is going to be a very different evening, and counselors, you're just going to have to pay attention. We're going to be jumping all over the agenda. One of the reasons is we need to get our police staff back out on the road, and I don't think they want to stand around here because there aren't any more chairs. So we need to get them not standing. So let's, I'm going to start with, right under communications and presentations, the promotion of Sergeant Colleen Adams to Lieutenant and Patrol Officer Jamie Riddle to Sergeant. And Craig, I don't know what to call you after this morning.
Technically, until we do it.
You call me Craig, that's my name. I've been called worse, believe me. A bunch of people over there have called me worse. Okay, listen, I want to say, one of the most rewarding aspects of leadership is to observe our people in their professional growth, personal and professional growth, and as a success as our team members, as they succeed as our team members. This evening, we are recognizing two of those individuals, two of the very many outstanding officers that we have, and that is Sergeant Colleen Adams and Officer Jeremy Riddle. Would Sergeant Adams and Officer Riddle please post? Sergeant Adams, Officer Riddle, the City of Sanford and the Sanford Police Department has given special trust and confidence in your integrity, valor, leadership, and professional excellence. In view of these qualities and your dedicated service, Sergeant Adams, you are promoted to the rank of Lieutenant, and Officer Riddle, you are promoted to the rank of Sergeant.
Don't go away. You didn't even begin to think I was going to let you get away with that, did you? Do you happen to have family here? Would they please come on up and join you? Love to. Because we would like to have some pictures with family around you guys.
So you can divide it up, or you can stay. Perfect, that's perfect. You guys all look great. I expect the teenagers to smile. Good one.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, now, don't go away. Okay, now we're going to move under new business, and we're going to do the first. Oh, no, we already did number 2.
Number 4.
So I go
She's down
number,
to 3. Oh, sorry.
I did 3.
She's a crazy numbering scheme.
Yep, I got it. You know, they really think they need to help me a lot, which is true, but not this time. I've really got it this time. Okay, so under new business, we're going to do the first 3, and the very first one is, in order to accept, with regret, this is definitely with regret, the resignation of Police Chief Craig L. Anderson, effective October 1st, 2024. Can I have a motion? Ann,
Madam Mayor, also with the deepest regret, I will accept that motion.
a second?
Also, with the
Jonathan?
deepest regret, I will second that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you.
Any final words?
Well, I thought I was going to make it through this, but you're causing me some.
Sorry.
So, yes. And this is for the mayor. Did you know? 1,168 days ago from today, I stood here and was sworn in as your chief of police. Did you know the first person this administration hired was Officer Jeremy Riddle, now Sergeant Jeremy Riddle? Thank you, Jeremy. Did you know the last person this administration hired is Haley Lathrop, who started today, October 1st? Her first department meeting was this morning. Did you know the police department has hired 24 employees in the last 3 years and several months? And that's a shout out to Stacy House for getting that done. Thank you, Stacy. Out of the 24 hired, we've retained 21. Did you know that we've had 14 main pension retirements in these last 3 years? Officers that have served this community for 20 plus years and have moved on. Did you know that of those 14 retirements, we retained 5 of them as rehired employees and various capacities, and currently we still have 3 of them full-time and 1 of them part-time. And did you know that we only have 1 vacant police officer position for our department currently, compared to the many vacant positions around the state? And my final did you know the mayor's favorite vegetable is butternut squash?
True, true.
She
true.
orders double butternut squash when she goes out to eat. Amazing. So what I'd like to say to you tonight is, you've heard me and many of the members of the police department say over and over again, no one accomplishes anything by themselves. What I just read to you, we didn't accomplish by ourselves. We did it as a unified family, as a team, as a community. And that no one accomplishes anything by themselves is a statement. It's a foundational piece in our police department's leadership ideology. And it aligns perfectly with a quote I recently read, and it's attributed to Chief John Drake of the Metro Nashville Police Department, who said, "It takes all of us to help keep each other safe." And I found that quote super impactful. And if there's anything I would like you to remember for the previous 3+ years and moving forward, is that quote. It takes all of us to help keep each other safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg? Okay, now, you really didn't think you were going to get away that easily, did you?
Kind of. I thought I could wow my way out of this.
Steve?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, Chief. So I don't want to accept your resignation and your notice of retirement with regret. So I would rather accept that with acknowledgement of your accomplishments and the benefits to our city stemming from your leadership. So I went all the way back to the first part of the process for which you were installed as chief. So first I wanted to recognize your 35 years of dedicated service to our city, through the service within the police department as an officer, your service to our country in the military, your service in criminal investigation as a corporal, as a sergeant, and for the past 3 years as our chief of police. Craig was selected from a national search. It was a search that started with a 24-person citizens committee seeking to identify the attributes most needed in our next chief, and that's an extremely important point. What our city's vision of community policing would be, and for a change agent to propel the department into the future. Chief Anderson was named via that extensive process as our city's best candidate without exceptions. I think I can acknowledge his accomplishments the best by revisiting the appointment memo that I wrote 3 years ago for July 20th for him becoming chief and recognizing his contributions to the department and our city. So again, at that point in time, the chief had served us since 1989. He had 32 years of experience at that point, with having served in the overwhelming majority of positions within the department. He was currently serving as deputy chief of the Sanford Police Department. There's a lot of parallels that we'll be able to draw for the rest of this process tonight, but let's start there. Then D.C. Anderson had served in all capacities within the department, progressively serving in administrative and law enforcement operations of the department. So check mark. I quote from the memo. Is stated in recommending Craig as being our chief. D.C. Anderson expressed the highest ability to provide continuity to operations while also expressing the greatest ability to implement major programmatic and operational changes within the department above all other candidates. Chief Anderson achieved programmatic change by a complete change in leadership form that engaged his department at all levels in operations, the span of control, and the delivery of critical services at a level not achieved before. This was a paradigm change for the department and a cornerstone of attracting and retaining officers since becoming chief. The chief talks about the extensive number of positions that have been hired during his tenure there, and it's a testament to the changes that took place within the department, not just wages, benefits, and such, but that change in leadership and the becoming a center of excellence within not only the region but the state. Also, quote from that memo, it stated that Officer Anderson also has the support of the department as the next chief, as he has been serving the role of deputy chief for a period of months, producing notable results. That support was there on day one and has continued through his time as chief. That is a mark of a true leader. Also, quote, "It is noteworthy the elements of community policing that are being implemented since DC Anderson has been granted the authority to implement. The implementation of licensed clinical social workers into the department, community outreach, and his ability to partner with other police units and agencies has been outstanding." So I note that Chief Anderson accomplished all of these transitions and focal points and greatly improved the favorable impression of the department in their delivery of service, our safety within our city. Also, quote from that memo, "His knowledge and ability to accredit the department through the Maine Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, MLEAP, checkmark." So at the next meeting, the MLEAP Certification Board will be here and present that to the city, that the department has achieved that objective. Also, quote, "DC Anderson also expressed the greatest ability to internally promote the department with officer recruitment and retention programs during his extremely difficult time for law enforcement officers and their careers." Check. Through his leadership, the work environment and attitude within the department became one of the greatest attraction tools to bring both non-certified and, most importantly, certified officers into the department. At that time, there were 15 positions staring us in the face that were up for retirement and potentially not going to return. But I would say, Chief, mission accomplished. Thank you. As far as the next quote, "Succession planning and departmental organization were also strong elements expressed by Chief Candidate Anderson." Check. That work will be more evident tonight as accepting his resignation. The city is also accepting the significant outcome of the succession planning as a new chief and deputy chief are going to be named this evening. The succession plan that was developed and embraced by our city council and by me as city manager will play out here this evening, and I thank the chief for his leadership in that. I would further quote, in there it's stated, "I would further note the exceptional communications and ability to connect with the public of DC Anderson. His life and career experience that allows him to be both a stringent law enforcement officer as well as demonstrating the highest level of empathy for the diversity within our community, within our city, and the ability to problem solve in areas around law is exceptional. This has been one of your greatest strengths, Chief, and your greatest contributions to the department in working with our residents and connecting the department in their work to our community." So lastly, I've heard the chief say, as late as today, that all leaders have an expiration date. And while that may be true to some extent, what I want to recognize above all else is that the contributions the chief has made in his leadership that he's made to the department and our city does not have an expiration date. But the product of your work will carry forward and will be built upon by future administrators within the department. We will always be better for that work.
Thank you.
Craig, you are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can make it through the rest of the meeting. All right. City Manager appointment of Deputy Police Chief Eric H. Small to the position of Chief of Police effective October 1st, 2024. There is no action for this one. Steve, are you going to speak on this one too? Do you want me to bring Eric down because we want to really embarrass him also? So if you could come down and stand here. And Craig, the reason I didn't ask your family to come down is because this is all your family. And this morning at the celebration, that was all your family too. So it was very special. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
So as earlier expressed, there's a memo in the council packet that talks about this succession planning that's been taking place for the last number of years within the department. So I'd like to recognize Eric H. Small as our city's best candidate for police chief. It's with rare exception that a department has produced such a strong succession plan with such highly qualified and best fit candidates such as Eric Small. The culmination of the succession plan was an oral board process with the city council to verify that Eric Small is the city's best candidate, and I affirm that as your manager. So I'm here to make the appointment pursuant to Charter Section 403.2. It comes with my highest recommendation pursuant to qualifications, experience, and the support of the department and the city council. Deputy Chief Small holds an associate's degree in law enforcement from Southern Maine Technical College and a bachelor's in political science from the University of Maine at Farmington, where he graduated in 1996. And as Ronald Reagan said, I won't hold your youth against you.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric is a graduate of the Maine Criminal Justice Academy's third, and I apologize, I don't know the acronym.
LETP, Basic Law Enforcement Training Program.
Okay. Where he was elected by his peers as class officer. Eric started his law enforcement career in 2001 with the Berwick Police Department, where he was the Noble Middle School's first school resource officer. Deputy Chief Small was recruited by Lieutenant Chad Allen to the Sanford Police Department in 2008. Good job. He quickly became a field training officer, training several successful officers who still work for the department today. He performed this duty until 2010, when he was assigned as a detective in the Criminal Investigation Division. Eric was an instrumental part of the team, assisting in solving the Sanford Mill Fire, several bank and pharmacy robberies, one of which he received recognition from the United States Attorney General for outstanding performance. While in detectives, Eric served as detective supervisor, training and mentoring new detectives in the division where he served for 8 years. So recognizing the development need for departmental focus on substance use disorder and mental health needs, Eric was assigned as the first mental health officer for the city of Sanford. Eric became an addiction recovery coach and recovery coach trainer. He spent his time in the community building relationships with people experiencing homelessness and substance use disorder and transporting people to resources to aid in their recovery. So again, I note the empathy that we found so desirable in Chief Anderson that we now recognize in you as well. Eric started the strong relationship the department currently has with Maine Options Program, Sanford Housing Authority, York County Shelter Programs, and Department of Public Safety. So I recognize your ability to develop those partnerships and foster them. Eric was instrumental in expanding the mental health unit to two officers and 1 mental health first responder until he was promoted to deputy chief in 2021. Eric is on the board of directors for the Maine Association of Recovery Residences, an executive member of the Maine Recovery Council, and on the board of trustees for the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. He is a recipient of the FBI LEADA Trilogy Award and a graduate of the FBI National Academy Session 288. That's a significant accomplishment. He holds a master's certificate in police leadership from the University of Virginia. Foremost, Eric is a resident of Sanford, dedicated to the community, and believes strongly in public service. I've worked extensively with the deputy chief over the last 3 years under Chief Anderson's leadership and acknowledge his ability to serve as the department's highest administrator and as our police chief to now continue a strong pathway of leadership within the department. So I'd hereby recommend the appointment of Eric H. Small, and I seek the City Council's affirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. All those to affirm? 100%. Thank you very much. Please don't go away. I do know you have family here, so could we have your family come on up for pictures?
They didn't want their picture taken tonight?
And we're going to do, the pinning too now, okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
if we could have the chief come up, please.
No, not until we get to the pinning.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm going to,
Still telling me what to do.
Okay.
About
Let
another
me
5 minutes.
Let me explain this part first. We do have an order to confirm the city manager's appointment with Eric Small to the position of chief of the Sanford Police Department pursuant to Sections 402.3 of the Sanford Charter. And I believe you said that in your thing, but we have to, this part we do have to vote on, so I need a first and a second, and then we all vote. Ann?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. A second. Jonathan?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Now, for the pinning part, and who's going to explain the pinning?
I can.
Excellent.
There's an explanation.
Could I have, I think at least Diane should come down for this.
He can have his entire family come down, that's totally fine.
Bring the whole family down.
We can't have Mason, but Mason's online. I saw that. Yes, Mason's online.
And I know this is a little formal of what they do, so just let him stand and do his formality also.
Okay, wait, yeah, that's it. Right there.
That's perfect. And then when you're done with the pinning, we will ask you to introduce your family to us. All right, go ahead, Craig.
So this is really the first time we've done this, and we believe it will start a tradition for the police department that the outgoing chief will pin the incoming chief, that transfer of leadership that we talked about this morning at the change of command ceremony. So for now, Eric, please come to attention.
I was cringing. There's a lot of trust there.
The mayor's making me say it.
Would you mind introducing your family? Yeah, I'm not going to make your family speak.
Well, this is the woman I give all the good ideas to.
I do realize that, yes.
So in the middle is my wife, Diane, who you obviously know. To her right is my father, George, and my stepmother, Sue. And my daughter, Leanna. She's my high schooler. My son, Will. Emily, and my granddaughter down there, the little pretty face, Grace.
All right. Thank you
And
for
my
letting me
son,
bring you forward.
Mason, is
He's
I've been told,
online?
online. He's in Kansas in college. So
Oh, all
I'm
right,
happy he's here. I didn't have a chance to talk to him before, so that's great. Thank you.
all right.
That's my
Did you guys
team.
get a picture with
Yes.
him? You did?
Pictures.
Not sure they did.
We did with Craig there. All right, thank you very much.
Could I have 1 second?
No, you've got to wait 1 second. Sue, come on down.
Oh,
One more part.
Raise your right hand. Do you, Eric H. Small, swear that you will faithfully discharge, to the best of your abilities, all the duties incumbent upon you as the Chief of Police in the City of Sanford, according to the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the State of Maine, so help you God?
I do.
Be it known that we, trusting in the ability, discretion, and integrity of Eric H. Small, by virtue of the power invested in us in the statutes of the State of Maine, do hereby constitute and appoint Eric H. Small to be the Chief of Police unless resigned or removed for cause, which probably isn't going to happen. Congratulations.
That would be.
This city manager did steal most of my thunder on the Craig speech. I thought I was supposed to do that, but I appreciate that. I'm going to touch on a couple things that you missed real quick. And as I stood back there and just thought about what you were saying, which are all true, I was thinking about legacy and what is Craig's exactly. And what I truly believe it is in our mission statement. Craig was instrumental in our mission statement of providing excellent law enforcement service. That's the first thing that we did, really, as a team at the police department. And I think we're going to build upon that, but it is the foundation by which we work. He was also instrumental in bringing forward all our leadership principles. They're principles that the sergeants and the lieutenants are tested on. They're on the walls of our police department when you walk in the lobby. They're primarily what I usually say to the officers is it's why we get together, get along so well, how we treat each other, and why we're such a really special team at the police department. It's often difficult to describe the bond that we have, in my opinion. Taking ownership of when you're wrong. We're all going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes, I assure you. But I will always say that I have, and I'll take ownership of them. Any success is going to fall on the team. All failures will fall on me. But in our house, we admit when we're wrong, and we try to get better. We listen to each other. That's a big one. The ability for us to sit back, not fiddle on your computer or play with your phone and just listen to the person in front of you. Your ability to self-analyze when you make that mistake. Maybe you didn't listen to the person one day. You got to circle back around and say, hey, sorry I didn't listen to you. That means a lot to people. That's one thing we've learned. We like giving ownership to other officers. Some of the best ideas we've had at the police department have come from officers that, worked here within a few months. There's a lot of things we've done differently just by new people walking through our doors. We remain humble and have humility within the doors of the police department. I know sometimes, too much. There's balance. I mean, we've mentioned that in a private conversation. But we do remain humble and, try to give credit to others at all times. We empower our team to go out there and do a good job. 95% of the decisions that are made at the police department are made by the team, not necessarily made by the administrative staff. Our leadership pyramid, if you can envision that, is upside down. The ideas flow down to the command staff, and we support them, give them tools they need to do their job. And we send our team to training. That's really important. We rarely say no to training. When we do, we tell them the why. The last thing I'm going to tell you. We always tell people the why. People just want to know why, if they're told no, or why we're doing something. And those are principles that Craig Anderson brought to the police department. I don't know where he is anymore. Over there in the corner. They're on the walls of the PD, and they are honestly things we talk about every day. We hold each other accountable to them, and people can lean up the chain of command just as well as lead down. So thank you, Craig. That is your legacy at the police department, and it's going to live there forever. No doubt about it. Thank you. Next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 7.
We're going to still be under communications and presentations, and Eric, this is still you, the next two.
Yes, ma'am.
And appointment of Major Matthew Gagne to the position of Deputy Police Chief.
Matt Gagne, post. Madam Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, City Councilors, it is my privilege as my first official duty as the police chief for the city of Sanford to promote Major Matthew Gagne tonight. Matt Gagne is a 1998 graduate of Sanford High School, a 2003 graduate of Gordon College, where he majored in marine biology and kinesiology. He applies that every day at work, by the way. He actually probably does in some way, and I'm not kidding. He was hired by the Sanford Police Department in 2004. He's navigated his way through our agency, holding numerous assignments and responsibilities. In 2011, Matt was promoted to the rank of corporal, and in 2018 to sergeant, which was later converted to the rank of lieutenant. Tonight, placing special trust and confidence in Major Matthew Gagne, recognizing his dedication, his excellence, his service to our community, we are promoting Matt to the rank of Deputy Chief of Police, and we welcome his leadership to our department. I am going to pin Matt Gagne and maybe even stab him.
Oh, boy. Oh, these aren't long pins like what Craig had.
I know,
You stand a chance.
might survive it.
Ooh, this is a long one. Could you bring your family down?
Most of them are online, but my wife is here.
Yeah, we can embarrass one person at least.
DC
Nobody
Gagne,
escapes it.
I thought the cat might come for the photo shoot, but no.
I thought about it.
Next time.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
You could be the first police chief to appoint a feline within the department. It's already got the vest,
You
good
tried to
size
talk me into
there,
this the other day.
very scrappy cat, you know?
The answer is no.
No,
Mayor's shaking her head.
no, no
Boss.
cats. No cats, although I did see a cat in Craig's office this morning.
Visiting.
It's a little,
Oh, the skeleton one?
yeah, well, that was, I think that was a dog, but there was a
We had the
little,
skeleton at Craig's desk this morning, as a joke, and...
yeah.
that's-
Oh, I've got pictures of that guy, so I'll show you the
Oh, yeah,
pictures
that's
of
good.
that later, for those of you who couldn't come. So now we're moving on to the last under communication presentation, the Life Saving Award. Eric?
Thank you. On September 28th, 2023, Officer Kyle Cutler responded to a reporting stabbing on Emory Street. Officer Cutler, who carries the chest seal in his duty belt, which is not common for police officers to carry, I'll point out, I believe he's the only person in the department that does, applied a chest seal to a victim prior to paramedics arriving on scene. Later on that night, the emergency department called and reported to the supervisor that Officer Cutler's action saved the man's life that night. For outstanding police performance in saving the life of a human being and displaying of, I can't even get this word out, I'm sorry, conspicuous, please help me. Conspicuous initiative, capability, and attention to duty, thereby earning respect and admiration for himself and the department, therefore receiving this award. Detective Cutler, would you please step forward? And his family is here for embarrassment pleasure.
Okay, perfect. Don't go away. Do you have family here?
You're not getting out of that. Come on.
Okay, you got to bring the family down. We need pictures.
She's the cruelest mayor.
He's got little kids too, so they're cute, so this is a good one.
Come on, girls, right up front. There's no teeth.
If you look to the rear of Kyle's back, you'll see where he carries the pouch right there.
Thank you very much.
Very unique. Thank you, Kyle.
Public participation.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. And now, we'll just take a couple of seconds break, so any of the people who need to leave, you're more than welcome to leave right now, and I'll move on. So,
They're running out there, they're running. They know how boring our meetings are.
and there's no one under public participation, so we're going to move over to public hearings. That wasn't too hard to follow along, was it?
I had a numbered agenda just in case. I thought when she was crying, I was gonna have to step in.
I think Larissa had trouble following along.
And I made the number.
Yeah. And if the public on TV land is wondering, we're just waiting for everybody to leave, so you can hear what I'm going to be reading. Okay, we can move right along to the public hearings. We're going to open up with a public hearing to take comments for or against ordinance amendments to the City of Sanford's General Assistant Ordinance adopting state maximum for general assistant benefits pursuant to 22 MRS Sections 4305, subsection 1. You really like public speaking, don't you?
I'm getting better at it.
Okay,
it's just
this
hard
is
to beat what
Vicky.
we just had the witness of seeing. That was amazing. So, yes, I am Vicky, the director of the City of Sanford's General Assistance Office, and I promise you that what I have is far less exciting than what we just saw. All I have tonight is the time of year, again, where the state of Maine has compiled the new maximums that we must adopt the appendices within our ordinance to accept those maximums. I did just point out this year that I just wanted people to know that general assistance is a DHHS program administered locally, and we must comply with the guidelines in order to receive the maximum reimbursement, which is currently at 70%, not 90% like a lot of people think. So that is all I have for tonight. Any
All right.
questions?
No, we'll get to that on under
After?
new business. All
Sounds
right,
good.
so right now we're hearing from the public, so is there anybody to speak in favor? Anybody to speak against? I hereby, seeing none, close this hearing. And we'll be back in just a minute again for
Sounds
that.
perfect.
A public hearing to receive public comments on the Seventh Amendment to the Downtown Omnibus Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District. This amendment seeks to approve .883 acres from the district in order to allow a new housing development to be known as Roberts and Main, TIF. And before you're going to do a little explanation?
I'm glad to.
Thank you.
My name is Keith McBride. I'm the director of your Growth Council. I have a couple of quick slides here that kind of illustrate what we're talking about. So we'll pull that up. Okay. No, we won't do that. We're fine. So we have amended this district a number of times before, including most recently, I think just last year. This amendment is pretty simple. As I think the mayor mentioned, we're just removing .88 acres. I had the lot numbers there that didn't come across. That's lots K38, K37, and K3055. So this is a map of our current downtown district. Everything in red is in the downtown TIF district. And if you look really, really closely down there in that circle, there's 3 little lots. Those are the ones that are being removed as per this amendment. So whenever we do an amendment to a district like this to remove property, we also need to correct the financials for that district. So the state will require us to remove the value of that from our future assessments of that district and also from the original assessed value, because when we originally established this district, the value of those parcels was included in the original assessed value of that district. So we need to remove it from both sides of the equation now, so it was like they were never there. And that is essentially what this, oh, there's a better look at the lots we're talking about. So you have Main Street on the right, Robert Street on the top. That is really all this amendment is accomplishing, and we'll talk about why in just a few moments.
Okay. Is there anybody to speak in favor? Anybody speak against? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. I'm going to open a public hearing to receive public comments on the Roberts and Main Apartments Municipal Tax Increment Financing and Development District. The district is .883 acres, more specifically identified as tax map lots K30-8, K30-7, and K30-55, and the developer seeks to construct 36 market rate rental housing units in 2 buildings, 12 units on Main Street and 24 units on Robert Street. Keith?
Thank you. So the purpose of removing those lots in the downtown district is to create a new tax increment financing district on the lots that we've just removed. So on those 3 lots, we're going to be designating a new district, which we've very uncreatively called the Roberts and Main Apartments Tax Increment Financing District. So again, these are the lots that are included in this. Whenever we designate a new tax increment financing district, step 1 is always literally to draw lines on a map, find parcels of property, put the box around them and say, this is what's incorporated into that district. So here is the full extent of the property in that district. So Roberts on the top, Main Street on the left, Dunkin' Donuts on the corner, Aroma Joe's there, and then the lot that's immediately adjacent to the entrance to the police station. And then, of course, on Robert Street, the building that's there is locally known as the Ballinger Auto Building, and the parking that's around it. These buildings are all currently owned by this developer, so they already have that. And this is a quick look at the site plan that was approved for this project already by our planning board. I believe in 2021, they approved this site plan. So we have 2 phases of construction for this project. On the Main Street side, we have a 12-unit building and some parking behind it to accommodate those units. And then phase 2, to take place approximately a year later, we have a 24-unit building on the Robert Street side, and the parking that's there now will continue to be parking to accommodate those units. These are market rate housing units. They are not taking advantage of anything like low-income housing tax credits or anything like that. They're strictly market rate, and they are similar in size and shape and design and development to the units that were built in South Sanford, Austin Place, and Austin Corner. This project also will account for the removal of the Ballinger Auto Building, which is a blighted building here in our downtown. So the second step, once we've designated a district, is to talk about what we're going to do with the tax increment funds. We have an original assessed value, which is essentially the value of all the property of that district today, which gets frozen. The tax revenues from that frozen value continues to flow to the city's general fund. So we're not losing anything from that. That continues to be there as if that part of it was frozen. The next step of it is any incremental value, any increases in property value within that district. The tax revenues from that are captured in a tax increment development fund that the city maintains, and we as a community get to make the decision on what things we get to spend that money on. So we're utilizing the tax increment financing revenues in this project a couple of different ways. Number 1, we're utilizing it from some of it to fund some of the city's high priority goals. We've talked about the need for quality child care and adult care, affordable housing and homelessness remediation programs, broadband extension, supporting the economic development program, and possibly establishing a downtown revolving loan fund to assist businesses, which I know is something that we've talked about a lot on the Growth Council and has been a part of our goals. And I know Councilor Hanselman has also been involved in discussions with SMFA to talk about trying to have them help us out with the management of that type of a fund. Public safety facilities is also another expense. Steve touched on this a little earlier when talking about the fire station. We're extremely limited right now by state law, utilizing only 15%, which is a bit of a drop in the bucket, but our hope is we continue to expand our tax increment financing districts to include this and future ones as well, and that hopefully that when and if, I'll say when, I won't say if, we can get that law changed in the way that Steve was talking about earlier, we can make some significant headway on making some of those public safety facility improvements that I know everybody's talking about right now. So that's number one. Number two, we can also use these funds to help make that development possible. Without the involvement of the city, the investment in this development, it's unlikely that this project would go forward. As is the case in the process of every new tax increment financing district, the Growth Council had a chance to review all of the financials on this, to look at the financing that this developer has, all of the potential revenues, the development costs. We found that there's a significant gap, meaning that the amount of construction, what it takes to build this structure and to have it operating to create this housing, is significantly greater than what they can afford on their financing. So we can utilize we can utilize a credit enhancement agreement to literally enhance the credit ability of the developer by returning some of that captured value back to them over a limited period of time, and in this case, at a capped amount, so that we know we're filling exactly that gap, filling exactly that hole. In this case, what we're looking at is a shorter term credit enhancement agreement lasting only 15 years or until it reaches that $1.1 million cap, whichever happens first. Our projections show it's pretty close. I mean, it may happen within 15 years. If it does, it's probably very late in that term. So the 95% of that would apply to the 95% of the new revenue that comes from this development. Again, the original assessed value of this today, the value of that lot today, is turning in about just shy of $10,000 in tax revenue to the city, and the city will continue to get that $10,000. But for the first 10 years after this development takes place, 95% of the new taxes would be returned to the developer as part of their credit enhancement agreement, and then for years 11 through 15, it's 85% until they reach that cap. And the Growth Council has found that that was the amount needed in order to meet exactly what we identified as a financing gap in this case. So this is my graphic representation of what a TIF looks like. What we have is in the red, you see the amount of revenue that's going to continue to flow to the city's general fund, because that is what is on the original assessed value. So like I said, it's just shy of $10,000. The increased value, the spike that you see that happens in year 1 and year 2, is a representation of what happens when they build this project. The tax assessed value goes up, the tax revenue from this properties goes up, and what's colored in green is the amount of that funds over that first 15-year period that gets returned to the developer as part of the credit enhancement agreement. Everything in blue is what gets captured by the city to be used for some of those priority expenses that we talked about: homelessness, economic development, affordable housing, public safety facilities, etc. So there's a significant amount. I mean, it's over $100,000 for every year past year 15 that the city will have to allocate towards those uses. It's a bit of a delayed gratification because we're turning a high percentage in the first 15 years back to the developer so that the rest of this is possible. Because without the city's participation, this project wouldn't happen. In that line and the red, I won't say it stays flat because there is such a thing as appreciation, and maybe there's another potential development option for this developer, but this is the one that we think makes the most sense and accomplishes some of the higher priority goals. So we'll talk about that in a second. I've touched on that the Growth Council's board found that there is a significant gap in financing here, and they do see that this could be a significant investment into downtown redevelopment, again, removing the Ballinger Auto building, putting a building on a vacant lot that exists right on Main Street in our downtown. And the Growth Council's question to the City Council is this the type of way that you would want to invest in housing, which is one of the top council priorities in your council goals for 2024, and downtown redevelopment, which I think is the number 2 goal in your council goals for 2024. So this is an opportunity for you to invest in those high priority things that this council has said they wanted to accomplish this year. And lastly, there's always an advantage when you utilize a TIF, and Steve touched on this a little bit earlier as well. When you do capture these revenues, everything that's in green and in blue, all of these tax revenues are what's called sheltered. So it's sheltered from the state formulas for revenue sharing, so it increases our potential for revenue sharing. It doesn't get counted into our formula for state aid and education, so it increases our potential for reimbursement for education costs through that state program, and it doesn't count towards our county taxation, so it actually lowers our county taxes. And that's what they mean by sheltering. So there is some financial benefit to taking new development and putting it into a TIF, and that is not insignificant. So the board did recommend this TIF with that $1.1 million cap. The developer, Steve Dumont and Tim Dumont, are here today to answer any questions that you might have about this project, and I'm glad to answer any questions you might have about our tax increment financing program or about this one in particular. And I look forward to the public comments and a conversation about it.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Anybody to speak against? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Now, let me explain what happens next. We just had 3 public hearings, so you're going to see the exact same thing under new business. And the reason it has to be under new business is because that's when we vote. We do not vote under the hearings. So I'm going to read almost the identical thing you just heard. And this is the time that if the council has any questions, you're more than able to ask those questions at that time. Where we already just heard from the public. All right, so if you look under new business, it's going to be the 4th one down now. That's where we're at, which Larissa nicely labeled as number 12 for me. Thank you. In order to adopt the ordinance amendments to the City of Sanford's General Assistance Ordinance adopting state maximum for general assistant benefits pursuant to 22 MRS Section 43051. This item must be read on 2 separate occasions. This is the first reading. So, seeing as this said this is the first reading, we do not vote on it. We'll vote on it with the second reading. But does anybody have any questions of Vicki? Yes. Jonathan. Vicki, you might want to come up to the mic. He might have, and Steve might be able to help with that too. So I'm going to put you right out there.
So, a couple things. The red lines don't seem to be in the packet, and neither are they on the website, so hopefully somebody can update that.
The red lines?
What we're changing?
I think it was in our packet.
It's in our packet under the agenda item, not
So
the.
it should be in the packet, yeah.
not
Yeah, it's
the-
there.
No,
It's
it's
like
not-
12 pages.
Yeah,
Okay. I
but
just
they don't,
I saw a memo.
they don't typically redline it. These are the ones that the state is giving us.
Okay.
So, but you can ask her what
So is
kind of
this-
changes.
So what exactly is changing? Is it how much we're receiving back from the state?
No, what's changing is the appendices within the ordinance of if an applicant comes in to process a general assistance application, the maximum assistance that we could assist them with within their application.
Okay, and this is just to align to the state changes?
Correct. Yeah, the state's the one that changes those, what's called GA maximums, and that's what's changing, is the overall maximum about what we can pay out for assistance.
Like if we go over the maximum, we would get reimbursed fully. And if we stay under, then we're like losing out on the potential for reimbursement, especially with the rents going up and the food going up and stuff like that. So sticking to the maximums is a good, we do it every year. It's positive.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not getting 100% of that back, but I understand.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
We're not getting fully reimbursed for that, correct?
We get reimbursed at 70% from the state on what we expend through GA.
Okay. And if we leave it at what it's currently at, what's the downside there?
We get 70% of that.
Of the lower, right.
We don't get
So
as much money
We've been
back.
over budget for our assistance, haven't we, last year or so?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I couldn't hear what he said again.
Yes, we've been over budget. We were over budget last year from what we had projected for utilization. When you look at the distribution of where the resources went, 72% of that went to new Mainers, and the remainder went to resident Mainers, which we are unable to fully anticipate that level of expense. So the GA maximums, as set by the state for our county, I would recommend that you adopt those as set by the state, because they use a formulation that looks at the housing cost, the average housing cost by 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 5 individuals. If we were to set a different maximum than that, we have to be able to prove and justify that. We have to have the methodology for which is subject to audit by the state, and if they disagree, they don't pay. So that's why the safe mechanism is to go that. The rates are up slightly, not significantly, but up slightly from the prior year, so that allows us to extend a greater benefit to those that are qualified, that are in need, and to get that greater reimbursement at the state level at 70%.
So if we leave them where they are you saying that we would not get reimbursed at all, potentially?
No. If you leave them where they are, you'd be able to extend, you'd only be able to extend those maximums at a lower rate to individuals that qualify, and the state would reimburse us on that lower rate. If you adopt these new maximums, there'll be a slightly higher rate that we can pay for the individuals that qualify, and we'll be reimbursed 70% on those higher rates.
Okay,
When you
so
look-
it
when
would
you look
help
at
our
the-
budget to have a lower rate.
No.
Wouldn't our outgoing costs be less if our maximums are less?
Correct.
Because we're
But
only
tho-
getting
but-
reimbursed
But
for-
those that are in need and qualify will receive less of a
Would
benefit.
get less, correct.
These maximums don't begin to address the cost of housing. They're grotesquely low.
I look at them and I'm like, I don't know how they would find, I mean, they're gonna get pretty awful apartments at some of these rates. 2 bedrooms definitely are not keeping up.
Right.
1 bedroom is getting a little closer, but even then, and the 2 bedroom is far off from what people are gonna be looking at. So, and I'd like to, like, I know we're talking about the new Mainers, but the only time I've ever received GA, I've had a new Mainer for about 3 months. And typically I had a young mother who's in my apartment, she had her baby, and at some point during COVID, she hit a bump. And she accepted GA for a month. And that's typically 1, maybe 2 months, get them back on their feet, kind of ducks in a row. That's typically what I've noticed with rental, and it happens very rarely for me. I don't know what your experience is for a normal, let's take the new Mainers out of the equation, but for a normal person.
If I had to run, I don't have the exact number, but Randy and I talked about this earlier. If I had to guess, we have probably between 70% of our applicants come in for that one bump, and then we can get them kind of back on the path again. So it's not, most applicants do not come in month after month after month after month, unless the ones that do that are usually pending Social Security applications, which the applicant can't help that situation. They're in the hands of waiting for Social Security to make a decision on their application. So those typically are the ones who come in every month. After that, it's, like I said, probably 1, maybe 2 months, and they're back on their own and doing their own thing. So Jonathan, just to go back real quick to talk about the maximum, like you said, you're talking about $40 to $50, and like we said earlier, the numbers are so grotesquely low already that if you wanted to keep the maximums at what they were, I think that's just only hurting the applicant even more, because that's less help that we're gonna be able to do to try to keep them housed. You know what I mean? So if you keep it at what was the maximums as of yesterday, 1,072, it's only bumping to 1,192. So you're not talking a whole lot of money. And again, that 70% on that increase, it's really pennies on the dollar at the end of the day by adopting the new maximums. And like I
Except
said,
that
this is-
help, even though it's small, it could keep them in their apartment until they can get back on their feet.
It very well could, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. See, I'm getting a little better.
And we'll probably see this on next the next agenda
Next.
for the second reading. All right, the next one. In order to approve the Seventh Amendment to Downtown Omnibus Municipal Development and Tax Increment Finance District, the amendment moves .883 acres on Main Street and Robert Street to, from the district. Any questions on this one? This one we can vote on, because it's not first or second, am I correct? All right, so may I have a motion, please?
Move to approve?
Pete, thank you. A second, Pete?
I second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. And the last on the agenda, you are anticipating stuff. The last on the agenda is in order to adopt and approve the Roberts and Main Apartment Municipal Tax Increment Finance District and to authorize the city manager to enter into a credit enhancement agreement with the developer. So, do you have any questions for Keith at this time? Jonathan?
Yes, thank you. So I'm kind of struggling with these numbers here because they're getting a 95% reimbursement for the first 10 years and then an 85, which is a pretty small change, the subsequent 5 years. So this is a pretty significant amount of tax base that's being deferred for basically 15 years. I know we have some challenging budget seasons ahead of us, and the last one was pretty challenging as well. And I'm just thinking of the taxpayers, and I'm sure you've run the numbers, but housing's tight, and there doesn't seem to be many apartments that are struggling to get filled. So I'm just wondering, maybe you can give us a little more background as to why these numbers seem to be forcing this sort of a rate.
Ann?
Well, just before, Keith, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make the public who might be listening aware, it was unfortunate that you were unable to attend the executive session, and I actually just realized, I don't know if Councilor Stackpole and Martell approved the executive session minutes. They shouldn't have. They should have abstained. So we really went over in a lot of depth and breadth this particular TIF. So I just want to mention that a lot of this has been discussed previously. I don't know how much we can discuss, or I'll let Keith answer. I wanted to make sure the folks know that it had been discussed at length.
Thank you, but
And it was also discussed at the Growth Council, too, with a lot of the people, the professionals there who understand all that stuff, and they also approved it. Okay. So Keith?
Yeah, there are bits and pieces of this that that do need to be kind of kept confidential, but I can speak to, this has been, we've been at this for a while, this particular TIF, and part of the reason is because we have established at the Growth Council what I think Steve has been calling a new kind of equitable approach to looking at these TIFs, trying to look at them all at a apples to apples sort of way. And the numbers, I think, and I know Steve and Tim have been very gracious with giving us information to help us complete that analysis. Those numbers have been scrutinized, and I think they certainly feel like they've been scrutinized for those numbers. They've been able to take advantage of a unique type of financing for this project, which is greatly to their advantage. And we've tried to not hold that against them, but it is a little bit different than the type of financing we've seen on other projects. That has allowed us really to look at a very limited basis of what the gap is based on a known factor of their debt service and their revenues. So the expense side of this, looking at how we identified a $1.1 million gap, I'm going to touch on that first. We had to look at a very limited time period and to look at what that's going to be over a time period. And I can say that that's a 10-year period. Where we identified a $1.1 million gap, which is a significant amount of money to be short on a project. But in order to make this project work, in order to get the benefits of it, in order to get the downtown redevelopment, in order to get the housing, we said if we're going to meet that gap, which we think is really the job of a credit enhancement agreement to help meet that financing gap, this is the best way to meet it, is to extend it out beyond 10 years. And these were the numbers where the math made the most sense, where there wasn't too much going, to the developer that we felt like we were overcompensating for a gap we identified that was only this size, and it wasn't underfunding them to the point where they were going to say, well, this doesn't work for us and we're just going to walk away. So it was meeting that gap in the most precise way possible, and this was the best way to do it. We also heavily scrutinized the revenue side, right? To your point, there's not a lot of apartments that are sitting vacant right now. We looked at the full market. We looked at what these types of units are going for. It's to our advantage in doing that analysis that there are similar apartments that have been constructed that are market rate at the roundabout, Austin Place and Austin Corner. These buildings are roughly the same floor plans. So we had a great model right there. Those are substantially full, and we have a pretty good idea of what the rents are in that space. So we applied real numbers. This TIF is unique in that fact that we actually had pretty real revenue numbers to apply and not just say, well, these are the projections, so we'll just go with the projections. So that's part of the reason why this took so long, because I think the Growth Council Board acknowledged exactly what you're pointing out. This is a significant amount of investment over a limited period of time. And is this really what we need to do to make, if this is going to happen, is this what we need to do to make it happen? And the answer to that was yeah. And it's tactically crafted so that it just meets that gap. So I would give my board, and I know Steve has been fond of saying this, a lot of credit in saying, let the council decide if this is the type of investment you want to make into those high priority goals that the council has put on paper and said, this is what we want to accomplish this year: housing and downtown revitalization. It's a $1.1 million investment spread out over 15 years to accomplish something that's going to be done in year one. Well, beg your pardon, 12 units of it will be done in year one, and then all 36 units will be done by the time we get to year 3. So that's one way to look at it. That's kind of the way my board looked at it, and they said, we're not going to make the judgment that this is an investment you ought to make. We're going to ask the question, this is what it is. It's a $1.1 million investment spread out over 15 years to get 2 things that are high on your list accomplished this year. Is that worth it to you? And that's, I think, the question that's in front of the council tonight.
More?
Oh, I just wanted to add to that, maybe you or Steve could answer that, but how much potential savings do we essentially see typically in a project this size, maybe, per million evaluation, I don't know, by not losing state revenue sharing and school funding due to the increased assessed value? I don't know if you can make a guesstimate based on your experience.
I don't have to guess. So we've run the
crunch numbers.
We've run the tax shift numbers. It's part of every application.
Because there's the 1.1 million, but then there's also stuff we won't lose.
Well, it's funny that you mention that, because that's another thing that Steve has been fond of talking about, which is, what's the exchange here? At one point, I think, and I went back and looked at some of our other TIFs, it was about 50-50. So what I mean by that is, for every dollar that we shelter in a TIF, it saves us 50 cents on that dollar by sheltering that value. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see, are those numbers still holding true? And I wasn't planning on bringing this information to the council tonight, because I kind of looked at it and went, wait a minute. But the numbers on this, when the tax shifts were run and we ran this TIF, we're saving 65 cents on every dollar. So Steve and I talked about this. I kind of expected those numbers to be down in the 40 or 45, but it's actually gone up. And I don't exactly understand why that's happened, but I know that those numbers are 100% accurate.
So in the 10 to 15 years that we're going to be giving back 1.1 million of taxation, we're also going to be saving from loss about 650.
Well, over the 30 years of the TIF, right? Because I look at this on a 30-year basis, because it's a 30-year long TIF with only a 15-year credit enhancement agreement, right? Because
let's talk about the 1.1, that's a concern that we're giving back to the developer.
Sure.
How's that? You don't have to go into the 30-year. Let's not make it complex. But the 1.1 that's going back to the developer to make the numbers work, it's not really 1.1, because we're going to be getting back savings from not losing.
I'll put it this way. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers that on an annual basis, you're going to be returning to the developer somewhere between 65 and 85,000 a year. Our tax shift benefit over that same time period is between 50 and 70,000 a year. So this is what you're giving up during that time period. You're saving some amount of that, but it is a 90, and like I said, so 65 cents on dollar. So this is a 95% TIF. So it's not 1 for 1. It's 65% versus 95%. But it's not a straight $1.1 million loss over that time. I would not classify any TIF that way.
Steve?
Yeah, Keith, can you just talk about, the city's going to forego $1.1 million of new taxation,
Correct.
but in that 30-year period, we're estimated to pick up how much? So I think that's part of your calculated number.
Well, in the tax shifts or on the revenue side?
I want to go to the tax shifts.
Okay.
It's a different question.
Yeah, different question. So the total projected TIF revenues in this is about $3 million. It's just shy of 3 million. So 1.1 of that over the first 15 years would go to the developer. But at the end of the day, it's
So hold that thought. So
1.9.
you're giving up a third in the first 15 years. After that, that 2/3 is pre-tax dollars. It's sheltered. So always think of it as
Correct.
pre-tax dollars. It's the easiest way to think about it. You know, I make $1, Uncle Sam takes, close to 50 cents out of that, and then I get 50 cents left over. That's what I get to, that's what I get to spend. Hold for a second, Jonathan, right? So in the pre-tax shelter world, prior to this calculation, I had always been using, because the previous calculation had showed about a 50-50 split on that. So let's not think of it as a savings or it's an avoided loss. So absent the tax increment financing, right now, you'd get to keep 35 cents on every new dollar generated in taxes as a net gain, because 65% of that you would lose through decreases in essential programs and services, increases in county tax, and decreases on state revenue sharing. That's the impact of having that new valuation show up in our books. By sheltering that valuation from the eyes of the state and the county, you avoid those losses, your EPS doesn't go down, your county tax doesn't go up proportionally, and your state revenue sharing is not reduced proportionally.
We might stick to $10,000 in taxes in undeveloped lots.
Yes. And then, once you get beyond this initial period, you give it up in the short term to gain it in the long term. All of that other $2 million plus of revenue is sheltered. And for all of those qualified expenditures that are put into the development program, you can then expend those pre-tax. So for example, we have a desperate need for 2 new fire stations in our community. In this development program will be that allowance. If that law changes, then you could use 100% of this newly captured revenue to go towards the debt service of those fire stations without having to negatively impact our other pre-existing tax base towards the payment of that debt service. So that's the well-crafted tax increment financing district and development program. If done appropriately, as this one is, it doesn't cause an economic transfer or burden towards the pre-existing tax base. It can benefit the pre-existing tax base when designed appropriately, and this one is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Ann?
And I just want to say it, I'm reiterating what Steve just said, but in a slightly different way in the hopes of helping Councilor Martel. And it's included in the packet on page 28 and 29 is the full schedule of the projected TIF revenue as well as the tax shift, which was a really nice inclusion for us to use for tonight. So the projected TIF revenue, for example, in year 16 is about $100,000. The tax shift savings in year 16 is about $65,000. Again, that 30, we're talking the same numbers. But what that means is that if it were not in a TIF district and these numbers came to fruition, we would only have $35,000 to work with within our general fund, which is not nothing, right? But it's not $100,000. And what we've done such a phenomenal job with, knowing that I've struggled with the balance of TIFs, right, historically, but what we've done a phenomenal job with is using TIF funds to take things, as Steve says, off our balance sheet that we're paying for anyway. And so though that $35,000 isn't in our general fund, we have $100,000 in TIF revenue that we can use for things that we would otherwise be paying for in our general fund, if not for the TIF. So that's why I'm in favor of it.
Ann, you do such a good job explaining things.
She loves numbers.
That was really good. Jonathan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I'd still like to point out the TIF funds, we are limited in how we can spend those, and while they can partially go to some projects that may normally fall in the general fund, it's not money that's in the general fund we can use for whatever we need to. So I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at these. It's, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially when the state's involved, and, we can't expect them to change some of the percentages for TIF funds and how we can spend that. So I just want to caution people to not bank on that, just so we know that that's what we're looking at. And these are very long-term, and, people are struggling to pay their tax bills this year because it went up significantly. So I just want to make sure that we're minimizing, the impact to the rest of the tax base, and not be giving, deals for particular projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your input. I appreciate it. All right, can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt and approve the Roberts and Main Street Apartments Municipal Tax Increment Financing District.
Thank you. May I have a second? Bob? Second. All right, all those in favor? And all those against? All right, thank you very much. And we are at the conclusion of our meeting. Can I have any comments from council members, please? Anyone with any comments, or are you all worn out?
Well, it's early. We could talk for hours now.
No, we can't.
No.
Okay, how about any future agenda items? And we do have a bunch already to go, so, okay, fantastic. At 7:45, I adjourn this meeting.